Great, we have a graph visualizing the time intervals when the object entered the video frame. Now let's go ahead and modify our code so that we add a window, so a window will pop up here when the user hovers the mouse over these quadrants. Let's do that. And the bokeh tool to implement the hover functionality is called the hover tool. And that is accessed from the lower level interface called models. So bokeh.models. So you want to import the hover tool. Let's now see how we're going to use this inside our script. And basically this is a method that expects from you some arrays with data, so that the hover tool method will display them when the user hovers the mouse on these quadrants. So if the cursor is on this particular quadrant, let's say, the data for that quadrant will be displayed on the pop-up window. So what you want to do is, once you have created your figure, you want to create a hover object which will be equal to the hover tool, which has a tool tips parameter there, and this will get as argument a list of tuples, and in every tuple you want to specify the lines of the pop-up window. So let's say in the first line of your pop-up window you'd want to have a start string, and beside that start string you want to have the array with your data. This has this spatial decorator here, so in our case that would be the start column from the data frame. So we want the start time and the end time as well. So end for the string and end for the name of the column. So that should do it almost, but we need to add this tool using the add tools method. So the hover object, we need to add it to the tool menus, so this should be a dot, and that's it. And we're gonna have to add more here, but let's see what we get this far. So python plotting.py, here's an object, another one, and a third one, and quit. So yeah, here is the graph, and we're almost there, but not yet. So as you see, for some reason Python is having trouble fetching the values of this start and end column. And you also notice that we have two columns for each of these rows here. So the first thing you want to do is remove this column. You don't need this because bokeh is adding it by default. So that's it. And now to solve the other problem, the main problem of the question marks, is by adding the column data source method, which comes from the bokeh.models low-level interface. So column data source is a standardized way to provide data to a bokeh plot. So if you got data frames, list, or other objects, for some functions in bokeh you need to convert them to a column data source object, which actually is very easy, and let me do it here. So we grab the data frame here, and then let's say column data source CDS, that would be equal to column data source, so the methods and the data you want to pass to it. So we have a data frame in this case, and then once you do that, you need to adjust here not the figure object, because we're not passing any data here, we're just constructing the environment for the plot, but you need to modify the quad method. So specifically you want to pass a source parameter here, which should be equal to the column data source object, so CDS in our case, this one here. So you're telling bokeh to use this data, and then you don't need to point to the data frame. So you just enter the names of your columns there. So let's see what we have this time. Object, another one, quit. Here's a graph. And yeah, almost there. But the problem is, this time we're not getting the days in the correct format. And the reason to that is the hover tool method. So here, we're here. The hover tool method is not being able to fetch date times data types. But that's nothing to worry about, because what we can do is we can convert the date times to strings in the data frame. So before we pass the data frame to the column data source object method, we convert the start and the end columns to string data types. So you already know how to work with date times. So in this case we'll do some datetime formatting. So what we could do is create a new column, let's say start string. So the string version of the start column, which should be equal to the existing start column .dt, which enables you to do datetime formatting, and strf time. And here is now how you define your date to be displayed. So we would want to display the year first, and then the month, a dash, and the day after that, and maybe a space there, and then hour, minutes, and seconds. And the same goes for the end column. So end string, end here, and the same here. And as you can assume now, we need to reflect those changes in here. So this should be start string, and this should be the end string. So we are displaying these strings now to the pop-up window. And let's see how this goes this time. First object passes there, second, and last, and one more. Quit. And we have a problem here, I suppose. Yeah, I didn't change the values in here. So I did completely the wrong thing. I shouldn't have changed the dates in this quadrant object, because this reads date times, because we have defined the axis datetime here. So this expects date times. So here should be the start, the original start column, and here the end column. So by mistake I put those values in there. So start string in here and string in here. So that should do it this time. Let's double check. Everything looks good. And let's see. Here we go. Yeah, we were able to grab the data. Let's see. Yeah, this looks good. So now I believe this graph is quite readable, and I believe you're able to pull out some information out of this graph. So you can see how long an object stayed in the video frame, and when it started and when it exited the frame. And I hope that you find this useful. Sometimes, as I already said, you can use a Raspberry Pi server, so which is a small computer, and host this application in that server. And of course you can mount a camera in that server and have it capture some video for your needs. But most importantly, I hope you learned from this practice activity, and I know that was quite a lot to consume. If you have any questions though, I would be happy to answer them, so please feel free to ask them in the discussion board. And I'll talk to you later on in the next lectures. See you.